This is Niederreiter holding onto it, and he scores! Niederreiter wins the series for the Minnesota Wild.
And here comes Jablinski. I give him heck. I'll tell you, this guy's from Anchorage, Alaska. No, there, see, look.
Now Iverson gets into the mix for Portland, and he starts throwing at Jared Hoff. And behind the T-Bird goes, so Hoff starts throwing back at him.
Look at this.
And it's Cody McLeod of the Avalanche taunting the Detroit Red Wings.
And now the presentation of the NHL Cup, presented annually to the WHL Champions. I would ask Western Hockey League Commissioner, Mr. Ron Robinson, to present the NHL Cup to the captain of the Portland Winterhawks, Troy Rutkowski.
Pleased to be joined by Taylor Peters, Winterhawk great, live from the Reel 'em In Southeast Portland.
Glad to be here. I'm glad we finally got this on the books.
So, a lot of times with these, I like for some reason I'd go chronological, but with you, I think I want to go right to the your business, your school. How'd that come about? How are things going with the Taylor Peters Hockey School?
Things are going great. It all started last year, around January. I was looking for ice just to run my own camp in the summer because that had been something that I had always wanted to do. I always wanted to come back to Portland, put on a hockey camp for the kids because I was afforded so many opportunities that I thought it was just something that I could do, kind of to take the knowledge that I've brought and kind of spread it out. And through those conversations, I was approached by Michael Ford at Sherwood Ice, and he said, well, I can do you one better. Do you want a job? We have an opening for our head coach position for our hockey players, and I think you'd be a great fit. And from that moment, it kind of started a conversation with me and my wife, and reflecting on myself personally, where I wanted to go with this hockey career and how I was doing. And we talked about it, we deliberated, and eventually it just showed up that this was going to be a great move, and I had to jump on the opportunity.
So you're working out of Sherwood then?
I am out of Sherwood now. I work there pretty much every day doing different things. I work with the 3-year-old learn to skate kids. I work with the adult clinics, and then I run my own private skills and skating classes, which that is the Taylor Peters Hockey School right there.
So your day job then is coaching and teaching hockey skills, and then your side job is teaching hockey skills as well.
Yeah, I kind of double up. But it's great. There are some days where I'm there from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and the days go by fast because, I still love the game, and I love being out there, and I love seeing the players that I'm working with develop and understand new skills. And I sent my first group of players off to their junior teams this year, which was really exciting, and I try and watch them as often as I can. So it's been really rewarding getting back here and meeting everyone again and getting to be more a part of the hockey community than I ever was playing for the Winterhawks.
Well, and no one is hitting you.
And no one is hitting. Well, my men's league team, some guys try and hit me, and then things go down. But it's okay.
I can imagine. So that's cool. So if people with young players are interested in enrolling in some of your endeavors, where do they go?
So I have a website. It is www.taylorpetershockeyschool.com, and if you want to reach me by email directly, my email is tpeters@taylorpetershockeyschool.com as well. And I will answer emails within the same day. I have a lot of availability for power skating lessons, hockey lessons, you name it. And if you guys have any questions about how you want to join in with the programs at Sherwood, you can contact me directly or contact Sherwood through their phone number or on their website as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I wanted I wanted to hammer on that first, just in case somebody doesn't listen all the way to the end and we ramble. So then, back when you were that age and you were coming up, what was the recruiting process like when you came into the Western League? I mean, were you listed? Is that right?
So there was a process there where the scouts with the Winterhawks identified me early on, and actually Matt Bardsley, who still works there, he came to one of my tournaments in Kamloops, and I was told this story years down the road, and they kind of saw me and saw some potential and liked what they saw, and that kind of ultimately led their decision to draft me off my hockey team in Greater Vancouver. And then from that point on, I was a Winterhawk until 2013 when we won the Cup. And thinking back to what that process is, it's just a blur now. 5 years of a blur and a lot of games, a lot of fun.
So where were you playing in Vancouver then when you got drafted?
So when I was playing, my Bantam team was just the South Delta Minor Hockey Association. It was just similar to the Junior Winterhawks. It's just a small association. We had a really good year. Brendan Gallagher was our most notable name. He was on my line there, and we are still friends. And that is our second year. So we got drafted. We had a number of players drafted off our team, and it was one of the only teams from South Delta that made it to the provincials that year. So it's one of my first tastes of victory was through those guys. And then that next season, when I was drafted, I was playing for a regional team which kind of combined certain other associations in the area. And that was when I got my first experience with the Winterhawks, where I got called up for 5 games as a 15-year-old. And from then on, it's history.
You tore it up in that 5-game stint. I remember they had one-year goals and a pretty good celebration as part of the video montage for a while. Full cage. And I mean, was that like you're thinking, I got this? Like this is going to go well? Like,
I think the first goal I scored, and I remember it was in the Key Arena against Seattle. And it was me and Tyler Swiston on a 2-on-1, and I actually kicked the puck into the net. So I didn't really credit myself too much for that one, but I did the math, and based off of the 2 goals I scored in 5 games, I was slated to have like a 29-30 goal season as a 16-year-old in the Western Hockey League.
Just like breaking sticks, right?
And I was like, this is it. Now I'm there. I made it. And then obviously things are different than they play out in your mind. But I had a great time either way.
That 16 year, that was a 19-win year. Started out with Rich Crom. He got fired. When was that? Halloween, right?
Yep.
What was the first part of that season like? I mean, obviously you didn't know it was going to change, but
well, I actually started with Willie at prospect camp. The year before in Calgary, I met him for a week, and he ran practices and stuff. Then he got fired, and Rich came in for that season after I got drafted. So I got to meet Willie, and then Rich came in. And I remember he was there when I got called up and played in Vancouver as a 15-year-old. And that transition was the weirdest thing, and it kind of opened my eyes to how much of a business it is, because we went on our Eastern road trip throughout October for like 19 days on the bus, and we got back, and there wasn't even like a ceremonial changing, like handing off the torch. It was just they were gone. They didn't say goodbye, and Mike and Travis were there the next day. So it was kind of interesting to see, but it was amazing to see the transition in mindset and professionalism that came with the change in ownership and the change in coaching staff. And I mean, you could all see how it affected us as a team.
Yeah, I mean, as a fan, I mean, I was kind of excited about Rich Crom coming in because the whole family thing. He played here. He wanted, I see his picture every time I walk into the old rink. With a TV on the ice for some reason, and it's And part of me wonders, I mean, he's still coaching somewhere, you know, and part of me wonders if he just didn't have any resources. You know, I mean, it was just that ownership group was just such a disaster that, you know, I don't know if I can really hold it against him, but this isn't a Rich Crom episode, but, you know, but then when MJ came in, and then you look at the ownership group now and the resources they gave him, you know, and you know, again, to go from a 19-win team to a 57-win team, you know, and a couple 50-win teams in the middle there. I mean, it just had to seem like you were just climbing that ladder the whole time, right?
It definitely was, and I don't know if the ownership had changed and Cromer had still been there. I don't think we would have been as well off as we were with Mike, but I think there definitely would have been improvement just in the way that our off-ice would have trickled into our on-ice, and that was the same way that it was with Mike, where as soon as he came in, he instilled this culture of professionalism, this culture of, you know, winning is what we do, and that trumps everything. And I think that as good as Mike is on the ice, he's even better with the players and developing professional hockey players before they ever step out of the Coliseum. Right? He develops professional hockey players at 17, 18, and that shows on the ice, and that shows in work ethic, that shows in dedication to systems, and that's the MJ way, right? That was the way that he taught us how to play, and taught us how to act as adults and professionals long before we ever had to be.
Yeah. So you're 16 years, so that was, you know, the year that MJ took over halfway through, and again, we finished with 19 wins, which honestly seemed pretty good after that 11-win year the year before in some ways. But and then as a 17, that's when Portland really started getting good. But you ended up spending some time in Penticton that year. What was that like?
Well, we brought new players in, and I think I got a little complacent with my 16-year-old year, just like when I thought that I could get 29 goals a season. I thought that my spot was guaranteed, and it wasn't that I didn't work hard, it's just that my mindset wasn't in the place where I had to earn my spot again, because I had just played 72 games as a 16-year-old that year before. And we brought new players in, we brought Nino in, we brought Johan in. We had a good lineup, and there just wasn't a spot for me to play consistently, to get in the rhythm. And so I think being sent down to Penticton really helped me develop my work ethic, and it helped me understand that, you know, things aren't guaranteed. You need to go out there and you have to earn it every night. And even if you're a 20-year-old player where your spot's almost guaranteed, you still have to show that you want that spot every day. And that changed from going down at the end of October to coming back in January. Those 2 months really taught me kind of the difference between being a hockey player and being a professional hockey player, where it's an on-the-ice, off-the-ice thing. It's about getting to bed on time. It's about dieting properly. It's about time management. It's about so much more than what you're doing on the ice. So I was really appreciative that Mike had faith in me, and that when we came to the point nearing playoffs, and when I got called up back at Christmas time for a couple days, and then called up back again in January, that he still had faith in me to perform to the potential that the staff had seen. And then from then on, he kind of showed me that I could be that fourth line center guy. He made me appreciate that role. And talking to Travis with face-offs and stuff like that, I really kind of came into my own that 17-year-old year as the guy, and especially working with guys like Stefan Schneider, who was a great guy to come after and kind of understand how he was, because he was a great professional guy. He was a great mentor to me. That 17-year-old year was really formative, because it helped me understand what I was going to be as a hockey player for my entire career, and that kind of defined who I was.
So, you're Penticton is always kind of one of the Yankees of Junior A. I mean, were they real good at that point?
They were real good, and they have a good program. They've got a good recruiter in that coach, and they've been good, I think, every year since. And I think they set the record for the longest winning streak in junior hockey or something crazy like that. A couple years after I left. And so it was good to go to that organization because I think they were the Winterhawks of the BCHL. And they had a good coach, they had a good program, they wanted to train professionals, and they wanted to do everything the right way.
Also, those guys make pretty good money down there too, but that's a whole different story. But so then when you came back, it's interesting you mentioned Stephen Schneider because that is the guy that played that role, but it wouldn't come to mind because he only played center for 1 year in this league. He was a converted defenseman that, there was no room at the end, and I was really impressed with the way he converted it to that position and embraced the role. But that's really interesting that he would be trying to pass that down because he was learning at the same time he was trying to teach the next guy.
I think he brought that defensive mindset to that center position, and I think that's something that I identified really early on is his effectiveness as a defensive offensive player. And his goals came, but he was so good with his reads defensively and just understanding how he was playing the game, how he was always blocking shots, how he was putting his body on the line. I think that's what I came to appreciate the most about him, that he was a team-first guy. And he didn't need the goals, he didn't need a crazy amount of ice time, but whenever he got an opportunity to either sacrifice his body by blocking a one-timer or a slap shot, or if he needed to stay back and be more responsible in his own zone, he was always first in line. He would always volunteer. And I think that's what translated most into my game, was that defensive effectiveness and understanding that I want our team to win. These are the most effective ways that I can help us win, and this is what I'm going to do. This is just what I do now. So he was a big help.
That's really interesting. So I wouldn't have anticipated that. So when we get into your 18 year, and there was just a little total sidebar one-off incident, but I remember it seems like that was the last training camp they had in the Glass Palace before this year. And I remember there was at the end of a scrimmage, and you and Liam Dara got into it. And I can't remember, he got his stick up on you or something, and so there's 20 people in there, so it's, you can hear everything, and you're just like, and you didn't even know his name, you're like, number 44, you're horse shit. You were pissed. And then he started the year on the team and then moved on at the overage shuffle. Did you remember that one at all? That just something that falls in the cracks?
No, but I mean, I'm not gonna deny it. And this is still an issue that I have. I'm not a fader switch. There's no there's no in between. It's either it's on and I'm insane and want to kill you, or it's off and I'm just having a good time. And it might not take a lot to switch.
I want to say you spiked your helmet like a football. Perhaps.
I don't believe that.
It's a contact sport with a weapon played at 35 miles an hour. That's the thing.
A lot of emotion, a lot of testosterone, a lot of adrenaline, and it kind of creates this perfect storm of get the hell out of my way.
So, and that was obviously just training camp, but then coming into that year, I mean, that was when you guys righted the ship and got good. I think it's like 40-some wins, 44, 46, something like that.
Yeah.
Realistically, what did you guys think you were going to do in the playoffs that year? I mean, that was kind of just unknown. I mean, we'd won a round the year before, that crazy Spokane series that the home team lost every game, and what? And then that Vancouver series, obviously, with your buddy Gallagher never left the ice. That 2012 year, I mean, or 2011 rather, I mean, what did you guys think you were going to be going to the playoffs? Did you know?
We didn't know because we weren't a playoff team yet. We had not been tested, right? And I don't know the exact number, but we didn't have very many playoff games of experience.
No.
I don't know if we had any, even with the players we brought in. And so you can't know. You can't know how guys perform because it's a whole other animal. right? And different players perform way better in playoffs, and different players turn it off in playoffs. And you can't know how you're going to be until you get there. You can prepare, and you can watch video, and you can do everything right. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we didn't know. Now, moving forward, every year after that, we knew our playoff identity, and it was pretty similar to our season identity, but with just a little bit more concentrated, whatever you call it. So that was the year that we kind of found out what we needed to be and how we needed to play in playoffs. And we ran into that Vancouver team that had veteran players that had been there before, and we saw how they played night in and night out. And I think that was a very valuable learning experience for us coming to the next year, where we had kind of established that respect that we wanted to establish. And then the year after that, in the 18-year-old year, because the 17-year-old year was the year we lost to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Yeah. That 18-year-old year when we came in,
That was Kootenai
we
series.
knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
We had the players, and I think we came into that Kootenai series a little confident in ourselves. And
Well, that was the Tri-City in the conference final, right?
yep, could have been.
And while that was a sweep, I mean, you know, I was lucky enough to go to those road games, and you know, Joey Baker had to score in the last minute to tie one of them, and I want to say they're both like that. Like you guys tied it late to get it in overtime in both those games.
That 18-year would have been Sven Barchi scoring that late goal, because Joey was on our team in 2013 and 2012. But I mean, Tri's a lot like our team. You know, they have consistent players. They've got good depth on forward. They listen to their systems, and so it wasn't a surprise that all those games went the distance and all those series went. I mean, we played Spokane and Tri-City every year in one order or the next.
Yeah.
And so all the teams have good coaching, have good systems. It was just who wanted it more. And like I said, we had learned how to get to that point where we were going to overcome whatever obstacle was thrown our way.
So what happened in your assessment looking back? I mean, what happened in the Kootenai series? Was that just...
I think we expected to win, and I think that was the first time for a lot of guys going that deep into the summer, and I think it's just tiring. It's surprisingly exhaustive. It's surprisingly... you get really sore, and you probably hear stories about when the Oilers lost to the Islanders, and they thought they would walk by the dressing room and hear hooting and hollering. All those guys are in there icing their knees and getting treatment done. I think we weren't prepared to sacrifice enough to get that win. And we got there, and we were tired, and we kind of thought we were going to win because we had Nino and Johansson who were going to go in the first round, and we had the guys that would do it.
and all they had was the goalie.
They had Lewin, and they had brought in Eakin, who was a good player, who I've met a couple times down in Dallas now. And I think it just came down to who wanted it more. And at that point, they did, because they were the underdogs. They had something to prove, and that was just kind of the tone for the series.
And it's, you know, ifs and buts, but you know, it sure would have been nice to have Brett Bonich in that series too.
Yep.
You take your best defenseman out, changes everybody's roles. Guy wearing the C and all that. So that next year, I mean, at that point, you guys are established. You're rolling.
Yep.
You're winning games. You know, it didn't seem like any of those playoff rounds were in doubt. Was that the year we saw Kelowna in the first round?
Yeah, because that's when Ty and Sven set the record for most goals in a series.
Yeah.
Because I think Barch had 10 goals in 4 games or something crazy like that. So we came out.
Tyson Berry was even great in that series.
Yeah.
They still couldn't stop.
Yeah. So we came out of the gates hot. We kind of had a chip on our shoulder now too, because we had lost in the finals. We were pissed, and if we were going to go to playoffs, we were going to go to win. We were going to come the right way, and I think we went Kelowna.
Was that Kamloops the second round?
I think it would have been Kamloops the third. Kamloops or Kelowna, maybe one of the U.S. teams, and then Kamloops in the semifinal, maybe, because they had that year where they had.
Was that the year you guys almost coughed up the 3-0?
That was the year when we lost Game 6.
Yeah.
And then won Game 7, because that was the year Learsy was on the team. It's all a blur.
Yeah,
but
we kind of run those one together.
We came out of the season with a vengeance, and we wanted to win, and that was the 19-year-old year. And then we get to the finals, and we just meet another good team with another good players. And I think if you play 10 series out, we probably would have won 5. It was just that they won the first one. And that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah, all 3 of those Edmonton series were pretty amazing. But yeah, that Kamloops. Let's go back to that. Let's go back to that Kamloops series. That was up 3-0. Everything's cool on the road. Up big late in the game, and then they're a good team. They came and got that back. They got guys too. And then it started to slip away. I mean, what was it? That Game 6, they blew the goddamn roof off the place. I mean, what was it like? The trailing moments of that game.
You're trying to pull out of a free fall. And ironically, sometimes the thing that you're trying to avoid the most, because you're trying to avoid it, is the thing you allow. And sometimes you try and be extra cautious, and it's what puts you in a bad position because you're not doing what you're normally doing. And I think what happened was we...
Prevent defensive football. You're playing not to lose.
Yeah, we were playing not to lose at that point, and I think that's what happened is what we became more complacent and tried to pull back and say, okay, you guys are kind of hot, we're just going to contain. And I think that kind of played into their confidence, seeing us pull back and saying, oh, this is a really good team. They've got X number of wins. They swept the first round. They were coming in hot. They've got really good players. Now they're afraid of us. And I think that kind of built off their confidence. And I mean, they're a good team. They got some lucky goals, but that's playoffs for it.
I took off work early and went down, and there was, I don't know how many, it was not many, but there was a rally, an impromptu rally at the rink waiting for you guys to pull up, which was a little sketchy because bus travel, it was unpredictable to know when it was you're going to be there. We were there for a good hour, probably at least, just waiting for you guys to show up. I mean, what was, and we're trying to keep it a secret, from the team and try to surprise them. I mean, again, it was a small group of people, but what was that like? I mean, well, first off, what was the bus ride like? That's like, what, 8-hour run?
It was quiet. And
video study, just nothing.
No, we never really watched video on the bus. I think because Mike wanted to be there to break things down and to draw circles on players and lines and stuff like that. We never did video on the bus. We would do it in the room where he could break it down more and use them as teaching points. It's just quiet. A lot of guys sleeping. Nobody's playing card games. No movies for sure. No stopping at gas stations. It's just a beeline. We want to get home and we want to focus on the next game as soon as possible.
And so when you guys pull up and there's a number of despondent fans cheering and doing whatever the hell we were doing, I mean, what was that just kind of surreal? I mean, what was that like?
It's always great to feel like you're supported, even though you blow a 3-0 lead in the series. It's always great to see that people still have your back. And I think that was something that really helped us into Game 7, where, even though we kind of crapped the bed there, and we probably weren't playing our best hockey, coming home and seeing that there was still that support, it really kind of helped us ride that wave into the next game, and it helped us win the series eventually. But in the same way, it's kind of deflating, because you get there and you almost feel like it's unearned. And you kind of feel ashamed, and you almost feel bad because these people are coming out to support you, and you're not giving back what you should be giving back in terms of wins. And so there's a couple pros and cons, but overall I'd say it helps a lot.
It's an ink blot test. That's what you're telling
That's how
me.
you see it. Yeah, sure.
But whatever it was, I mean, again, I don't think those fans had anything to do with it, but it worked. Again, because you didn't blow the lead. You didn't blow a 3-0 lead. You guys won the series.
Yeah.
I mean, how big was that Leipzig goal in the first minute or whatever, first 2 minutes, whatever it was?
I will say I gave one speech in the locker room my entire career, and it was that game. Over 5 years, I never stood up. I was always vocal, but I never stood up and made everyone listen to me. But that was the one game that I stood up and I said, I had to tell everyone, like, we have the fan support. We are the better team. We are not going to lose.
Prior to the game?
Prior to the game. Before we went out there, after warm-up, I went in, I stood up in the room, and for the first time, I looked at everyone and I said, we have this, but we need to earn it. And we went out there and played probably one of our best games in the playoffs. Defensively, offensively, system-wise, work ethic-wise, everybody was going full speed and they couldn't keep up. Shut them out 2-0, went on to the next round with confidence back again.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Sure.
Pretty wild series. And then that Edmonton series, that's just two heavyweights, and you know, they came out with the last punch.
It just fell their way.
That was. So you would have drawn the toughest defensive assignments against Oil Kings. Who are some of the guys you were up against in the trenches during those years?
Their top line would have been probably St. Croix, Foster. I don't know. They fall at the back of my head. They didn't really make that much of an impact on me.
Yeah.
But I think because I was out there so many times for defensive zone draws and stuff like that, I just saw so many. Oh, Samuelson would have been the second year. I remember
he was
him
on the line with Lazar.
Yeah, with Lazar. Those two guys were good players, strong players.
They were especially good in the series after you moved on to the pros, which worked out well for them.
Yeah, they probably appreciated not having to deal with that.
Yeah. Actually, if I remember, I think they're even there. It does tend to run together. So I probably should have done a little more homework. But so 2013 year, I mean, that's just magical. I mean, everything about it. I mean, to have the overage group that you guys had, you know, you and Ruth and Troy Rutowski, was really only possible because of the lockout. Because then it backed up the system, and guys did not move on to play pros. All three of you guys signed pro deals, which is, again, it's unheard of to have all three of your overagers sign pro deals. It just doesn't happen. It's guys that are going to go pro already did at that point. So that was, to me, the NHL lockout had a huge impact on that team to start out, right? And then, obviously, coming off 2 finals appearances, you got scoring, you got defense, you got everything you need. You got a proven goalie. Even though the fans in this town are super hard on goalies, and all-time winningest playoff goalie in the history of the league, still not good enough for Portland fans. But that's entirely different story. But I mean, coming into that year, I mean, it was, you guys were just out for blood, right?
Well, especially after the league decided to take Mike out of the picture. Then we kind of embody that heel mentality, like in wrestling, where you want to be the bad guy. You want to undo all this stuff that you think they're doing against you. And we had a chip on our shoulder, and we had an incredible lineup.
You take a 57-win team and make them the underdog.
Yeah,
is what you do there.
Yep, which is what happened. And I loved it. I loved being the Empire to the Rebellion. I loved being the bad guy there, and I loved every win we got. It seemed like we were sticking it to the man a little bit, and when we won the league trophy that year, yeah, because we got banners all across the board. It was justice a little bit, even though it was. I'm sure whatever they found it was a justified decision, and I'm sure whatever decision they came to was not made on impulse or for any other reason than what happened. But it did give us that villain mentality, and I think we rode that all the way to the Memorial Cup.
You took every D-zone face-off in every game for 4 rounds.
I didn't even have to be told. I didn't even have to look at Travis anymore, because as soon as the puck came down, I was already climbing over the boards.
I mean, that's old school. They don't do that anymore. That's like when you used to have a shadow and you'd have Esatikitin on a guy every shift, or Claude Lemieux or whatever. Like, you don't have a face-off specialist anymore. You don't see that, and it was really interesting. But I'm like, if you have this weapon and you were hot and you were experienced, like my girlfriend last, we were watching one of these finals games, and they were talking about Bill Willems, friend of the show, and he's like, this guy, he's 20 years old, he's seen it all, and she was like, thinking about that in the context of life,
yep.
Which you haven't seen jack shit at 20 years old, but in the Western League, you are a graybeard. You've been there, right? And so that to have that weapon, I thought that was in you. I thought that was a really astute move, and I don't think you lost many of those draws.
There were definitely more wins than losses. And if I did lose it, I'd work my ass off to get that puck out, because I know that if I lose that draw, then I got to take time away from Nick Patan with his 2 first-line guys getting caught in their zone. So I took extra responsibility saying, if I can get this out, now our line, or our first line, gets more offensive ice time instead of wasting energy in the defensive zone. So there's a lot playing into that, and I loved it. I loved going out there and guys looking at me coming off the bench and going... And I'm friends with Brendan Ranford, who was on the Kamloops team through all those series, and he worked with Colin Smith, who was their first-line center, and he's told me how Smitty would come off the bench, or come off the ice and just be so mad and be in the dressing room and just be like, I can't do this. And that was a trickle-down from kind of our team mentality as we are the bad guys. I wanted to be the bad guy. I wanted to be the boogeyman out there. I wanted you to die a little inside every time I was on the ice. And Travis really instilled that, because he kind of ended up playing that role later on in his career. And
Travis Hunter did.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Watch this table get super small.
You're good.
Anything else I can get for you, gentlemen?
I think we're good. I think we're good. We're calling. You can take whatever Lisa.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll take one.
So if you're at the Reel 'em In, you want to get the fried chicken. That's kind of the idea. And you got to let it sit for a little bit, because it is hot coming out of there. And you have to let it sit up before you can eat it, just as an aside. We'll probably get them on as a sponsorship deal on the show. But yeah, go back to those D-zone draws, and I always thought that, again, you did win a huge portion of them, and I thought that you would do it was pretty seamless as far as you changing and getting off the ice, and like you said, getting back to other guys playing other roles to do their thing. It seemed like it went really well.
The D zone, or just
D zone, and then you're getting off ice like nothing happened.
Well, considering how many times I had to do it, our whole team was kind of into that routine with me and kind of understood what they had to be looking for. And working with Troy and having Seth Jones out there and a bunch of defensemen who were very capable, having them there and having that defensive chemistry, which is very underrated, they knew where I was trying to put the puck. And so a lot of times I wasn't winning it with my stick, I was winning it with my skates. And they would know to kind of hesitate, push off of their other guy, and then that puck would squirt out right when they got away from that guy, and we would break out seamlessly every time.
Well, you're playing for a tie half the time, right? I mean, we credit face-off wins to an individual, but it's really a team stat, except for we don't track them, and it's not a stat, just like. But when in leagues that you do, I mean, it's really a team thing, and like you're saying, as far as having it's almost like a play in football or something. You know, as far as like having it drawn up, what you're trying to do.
And it was important that everybody knew what they were doing, and I would be orchestrating what we were doing off the draw. I would be saying, okay, this is how they're lining up. And we would talk to Travis, and he would say, okay, watch for this player being here, because if we do that, now you have to win you have to win it the opposite way, so that we can get it out on their weak side instead of playing into what they're trying to do on their forecheck. And so it kind of came down to understanding systems and coming down to the fact that you just have to win the draw. And if you don't do that, everything has to switch to defense, and that wasn't what we wanted to do.
So that Game 6 in that Edmonton series, those two shorthanded goals that Brady scored on that same PK. I mean, well, you would have been playing on that PK too, right?
Not on his line, but it's incredible what a penalty kill goal does for your momentum. Because not only is this team confident because now they have the power play, but they're also being scored on, and they're also supposed to be the offensive ones. And so it does double damage there. And especially if you do it twice, then all of a sudden they're in their own heads. Their confidence is sunk down to the floor. And I think, obviously Rats is a great player. He's still a great player. And he came up big that whole playoff series. He wanted it bad, and you could tell.
So what? You only get so many opportunities to hoist the trophy. I mean, what was that like?
Euphoric? I think it was even more of an experience because of what we had done getting to that point. Losing twice and coming all this way and playing as long as you can play to only come away empty-handed. There was a lot of those experiences that kind of flooded in and made that victory series, that winning that trophy, hoisting that trophy, so much more special. Was that we had paid our dues, and we were finally being rewarded for our effort for 3 years. And we were being rewarded for just our commitment to our team and our commitment to each other and our commitment to becoming the best team we could be. And this was kind of our trophy. This was our reward for being that team. And it was amazing. It was until I won next year, it was the greatest hockey experience ever.
I've heard stories about playing right home and somebody like taping their phone to the PA mic on the plane so you guys could listen to tunes like over the PA system.
There was that. I got to do the pre-flight announcements with your.
The safety check about knowing where the exits are.
Mac and I strapped the trophy into the seat between us and rode all the way home with it. And it was we just kind of rode that wave all the way back home to where there were supporting and loyal fans again. And then we tried to carry that momentum into the Memorial Cup.
Which is why it's such a cruel game, because you go through 7-game series, 4 rounds of it, win the war, and you still have a bitter taste at the end of it. It's like it's an extremely cruel league and a cruel setup the way it is.
Yes and no. I think the Memorial Cup is nice to see who is the best in Canada, but I think for us, if we lost the Memorial Cup, we wouldn't be as crushed as if we lost the WHL final. And that goes back to our journey to that road. Now, maybe if we had gone to the Memorial Cup final twice and lost, and then come to the Memorial Cup final again, I mean, we just ended up playing a mutant team that was made out of first rounders, and we almost beat them. But you got some guys that are going to be NHL Hall of Famers on that team.
How much of that McKinnon-Durant line did you see? Probably a lot, right?
A lot, but we don't get last change every game. And it wasn't like they only had those three weapons, right? They had a pretty deep lineup where every player could score, and we had a great team. They just had a couple of dynamic players that performed to their potential that week.
Yeah, which cost me as an Avalanche fan, because then they didn't take my guy Jones, they took McKinnon. And what do they need? They need a defenseman. They still need a defenseman. Seth Jones, pretty good. What's McKinnon doing? Well, he's there. I mean, it's hard for me to say that a guy in his position is not playing well. I mean, he's in the pros. But take the damn defenseman. Always take the defenseman. In general.
Give you a bigger trade token.
They're hard to find. They're impossible to find. So you went on top. You won your last WHL game against a WHL opponent.
Yep.
Walked out of there with a trophy. Came back a conquering hero. Then they paid you good money to play hockey. So you signed a AHL deal with the Stars, which is pretty sweet. I mean, again, what percentage of guys go on to play junior, and then what percentage of guys go on to play at the pros? I mean, it's like 1% or whatever it is. I mean, what was it like playing in the A?
It's an interesting question, because you would think that there is a higher level of professionalism, and I think because of the way I was raised with Mike, that when I got there, it was just business as usual. And I think one thing that you don't realize is how much freedom you get now that you're not being...
No school, no...
You're not being babysat as much.
Gentlemen, you mind if I get the rest of this out of the way and maybe grab the sauces as well while I'm handy?
Sure.
Cool. Appreciate it. Give you guys a little food.
So when you get the fried chicken to reel them in, they bring you not a 6-pack of sauces, a 6-pack plus one of sauces. It's a great place. Again, I need to get them a sponsor on the show since I'm giving them ad time. So you're talking about, no billets, no whatever. You're just kind of just on your own. Is that kind of what you were getting at?
You're on your own, and there are pros and cons to that as well, because all of a sudden you go from having your meals cooked for you and maybe having a car payment and maybe a cell phone payment to all of a sudden now you are cooking exclusively for yourself. You are paying for your car, paying for your cell phone, trying to find a place to live, all for the first time, and all with a bunch of people that don't know what they're doing at the same time. So that first year was interesting. It definitely was a really big change off the ice. But on the ice, things were professional as usual. It was just like coming in to Mike's systems, because Willie Desjardins, who was a fantastic coach, who I appreciated very much and who gave me a lot of opportunities, him and Mike are good friends. And I think Mike kind of paved the way for me to step into a spot that I was very familiar with when I was with Mike. And I succeeded throughout that first rookie season. I got 7 goals, 16 points. I felt really confident. And then we ended up going all the way to the finals and winning that year too.
When you say business as usual, I mean, are you saying that you were prepared to play professional and as far as approaching things as a professional because of what you learned in Portland? Is that kind of where you're getting at?
Absolutely. I think the culture that Mike has cultivated here in Portland is the same that professional coaches are trying to instill in our players, and I was lucky enough to have that done for me years before I ever became a professional hockey player. So when I got there, it was business as usual on the ice, work ethic. This is what's expected, and this is what has been expected. Your adherence to systems and stuff, it was all the same.
So the AHL playoffs, that's 4 rounds of 7-game series as well, right?
First round is actually only best of 5.
Okay.
So we played that game, and then we got one of our first rounders came from junior, and I was in the stands for most of the game. So I only played 8 out of the 20-ish games that we played that season, but I did get to play a lot in our conference final series against Toronto, which was a really good team. I got a goal and an assist in one of our bigger games and helped our team get into the final, which I took a lot of pride in. And then our final series in St. John's, Newfoundland, was one of the weirdest and most incredible experiences of my life. And it was just something that not a lot of people get to experience, which I appreciated as well.
Seems like I vaguely remember that series. Wasn't there like a bunch of weird travel and days off and billing availability going on with that round?
Well, what had happened was, because it's hard to book out a rink so far in advance for playoffs that might not actually be there, they had rented out their Mile 1 arena to a home and garden show for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we actually ended up playing Monday, Wednesday, Monday for our series, and we were there for 9 days in St. John's, Newfoundland, with 5 days off in between games.
Good weather? I mean, it was a nice time of year up there, right?
It was a nice time of year. I mean, it was the middle of June. So we went on a couple iceberg tours out in the bay there, and got to know the locals very well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they loved you.
We frequented their establishments.
So at that point, I mean, you went in back-to-back championships. It's rewind it back to when you're a 15-year-old, and you're going to break goal-scoring records. I mean, you're just going to keep winning cups, right? I mean, that's just the way it works.
I think because of my experiences throughout the 5 years in Portland, I realized that winning cups takes more than a team. It takes a lot of things to go right in your favor, a lot of injuries to not happen, and it's not something that just happens because it happens. It takes a lot, and I wasn't expecting things just to happen because they happened before, and I wasn't expecting seasons to be the same either.
What was the rest of your time in Austin like?
After Willie won, he rightfully so got picked up by Vancouver, where he still is. And from what I've heard,
at this taping, he's still there. But
yeah, cool. And from what I've heard from people that are closer to the team, is that the players like him. I mean, I loved him as a coach here, and I hope he does all the best, because he was one of my favorite coaches of all time. Just in the way that he operated was great. So we got a new coach in Texas there, and right from the hop, I think, because of the way that I've been trained through Willie and Mike, that I had developed a way of becoming the best player I could be, and that way worked very well with Mike and Willie's style. And sometimes a new coach comes in and it just doesn't work as well as it could, and I think that really damaged my career, and it was something that hurt me enough to I ended up in Idaho for part of the season and down there for playoffs, and then I spent the entirety of last season down there as well.
What's the Coast League like? You hear some stories about it being kind of wild.
There are still really good players in that league, and there are players in that league who stay in that league because they don't want to be called up to play a fourth-line role where they can play a first-line role in the Coast League. I think there are some players there that shouldn't be playing hockey. That should probably be bouncers or something like that because of their mindset and how they can skate. But I have no bad feelings about my time in Boise. Boise is probably one of the best organizations in the league. Their coaching staff is great. The way they treat their players is amazing. And if anyone has the option to go there, I would jump at the opportunity. It's just, as far as the NHL is from the AHL, that is how far the coast is from the American Hockey League. So it's just one more step down, more buses, not as luxurious arenas. Compensation isn't as adequate, but it's professional hockey and it's a good time.
Well, even then, I mean, they're still paying you a lot more to play hockey than most guys get for playing hockey, which is they don't get paid at all.
It's definitely nice to be doing something you love and getting a paycheck while you're doing it.
And there's probably more people stand up and cheer for you than do in a beer league game as well.
It's true. Not as many fans in the beer league games these days.
So you end up back in Portland, and I got to think a huge part of that would have to do with recently getting married.
You happy over here, gentlemen?
Oh, most definitely. I met my wife after my last season game with Portland. So I played here 300 plus games, and she came into my life right after I was done all of those games, right in the middle of our series with Edmonton in my 20-year-old year. It was a Wednesday, and from day one when I met her, there was that feeling inside that she was just going to be the one. She is my best friend, and she is a fantastic mother to our stepson right now, and she is handling her pregnancy so well. I'm so incredibly proud of her for working so hard. I don't know what I would do without her, and coming home wasn't even a decision. It was just the right thing to do, because the more time I can spend with her, that is going to be my priority every time.
So, I guess I knew you were together for some time. I thought it was longer than that. Interesting. So, and how long you guys been married?
We have been married. I gotta count up.
So I hope she's not listening to this. We might be in trouble.
Well, I know how many months. I know when our wedding was. Let's see.
All you guys at home, make sure to learn from this. Have your number ready.
It's been 1 year, 122 days, 19 hours, 46 minutes, and 30 seconds since the day we said I do.
Joy of technology. And so that was so. At what point of your career were you in Austin then? At that point,
I was in Austin. We started dating right before I left, and she would make trips down to see me, and then we saw each other at Christmas, and we spent that entire summer together. And then at the end of that summer, I proposed to her, and then we got married last July.
it's still pretty quick.
I admit that we got a couple sideways looks, but when you know, as they say.
And you're expecting right now?
We are expecting. We have a little boy on the way who is due February 26th. So right in that first 3 months of birthing a good athlete, as Outliers says. So I'm hoping to live vicariously through him on his path to becoming a professional hockey player as well.
Right shot defenseman?
No, gross. Shutdown centerman.
That's where the money is. That's where the money is, right shot defenseman. Although in 20 years, maybe the shutdown centerman is the key. You can't draft for need at 20 years out.
It's true.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Who are some of your favorite guys that you played with? Maybe on the ice, maybe off the ice.
Let's see. right off the bat, Chris Francis was one of the guys that was very.
I love Chris Francis.
He was really nice to me coming in. He wasn't that standoffish vet type. From day one, he was a nice guy. He included me in a lot of stuff. Moving down the line, Taylor Jordan was a great guy. He put his body on the line for you. He'd stand up for you on the ice. Funny guy in the locker room. Worked hard in the gym. He was just a good guy to focus on. Same with Schneids. He was the same way. I would say Mac and Troy, just because of the amount of time that we had together, we developed really.
5 years for you and Troy.
For me and Troy, and then 3 years for Mac and I. And Mac and I actually lived together for a couple of those years at the same billet house. We developed just a very deep respect and friendship with one another just from all the challenges that we had overcome together. And Mac was in my wedding and Troy was there as well. Just because they were big parts of my life, I wanted him to be there. And then Josh Hansen was another guy that him and I think we connected very well on an intellectual level and a spiritual level because we were both Christian. We would go to church a lot together when we were here. And we would both kind of be the ones focusing on our schoolwork when we were actually doing our study hall instead of...
Well, he passed up Harvard to come here.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
And now he's over at the University of Toronto with his economics degree. And then probably one of my better friends on the team would have been Derek Pouliot because we loved playing video games together, and we would always play the same games, and we would play it through, and we'd have the headset on and stuff like that. And we had a couple years where we would have all of our team playing Call of Duty together, and we would play, and we would call out systems and stuff like that. We had all the nerdy guys working it out together. So I would say those are probably my favorite guys from the Winterhawks. Brendan Ranford was one of the guys that I became really good friends with in professional, in Texas and stuff like that. Brett Ritchie, one of the guys who's on Dallas right now. He was my roommate my first year, and we both kind of circumnavigated those challenges of suddenly living on your own together. And he was actually in my wedding as well with Brendan. And then in Idaho, I met a couple really good guys. Tommy Fallon was a great guy. And Brandon McGee, who played for the Victoria Royals a few years back. You just meet guys that kind of understand the life of a professional hockey player, and you instantly start to click with them. And because you get such a limited sample of people to become friends with, you have to connect really easily. And I was blessed with meeting really cool people along the way, and I know those are friends that I still talk to now.
Who are some of the guys that drove you crazy? Maybe some of the guys you played against.
Played against?
Yeah.
Or
with.
Played with.
Or with.
No comment.
In that defensive role, there had to be some guys to go in the corner that you just wanted to kill, right?
I tried to hit Brendan Ranford as much as I could, and it was kind of an interesting coming around full circle where when we actually ended up hanging out, because we met each other at the airport on the way to Dallas's development camp. We kind of shared those stories and became friends through our mutual hatred of one another, which was kind of funny. But I'd say overall, Shinneman was a guy that I just couldn't stand. He was on Tri-Cities those years when they were really good. He led the league in points.
I'm sure no one listening to the show can stand him either. But
yeah, I mean, there aren't very many guys that stick out in my mind as the ones that I hated to play against. Yeah, Leipzig was annoying as hell, but I think that's the path of a 17-year-old kid coming into his own as being one of the best players in the league, and I couldn't stand it. I might have been a little bit jealous because I wasn't getting as many points as him.
You were.
So, but we all got along and we all came together on the ice, which was the important thing.
So while you were here, you just casually, nonchalant, no big deal, saved the dude's life.
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
I've never saved a guy's life. I mean, what? And a lot of that. I mean, I remember reading in the paper, and I think at the time you credited that to being an athlete and being in good physical shape. I mean, tell us that story.
It was New Year's Day Eve, so first day of the year, actually. And I was heading out to meet up with a couple of the guys. And our billet family lives in a floating home right by the Sherwood Bridge in a little community with 20 or so houses. And my billet mom, Loretta, was outside on the deck, and she heard somebody calling for help. And obviously, it's not something that happens a whole lot, so I kind of scoffed at it, and I said, I don't think this is anything, I'm just going to take off. And she was like, no, you should come check this out. And so I went out there, and sure enough, I heard two voices calling out for help. And since it was 8 o'clock on January 1st, it was pitch black. And
probably cold.
It was super cold, but in that moment, you kind of switch from seeing it as like a casual thing that people are just screwing around to, okay, this is something serious, and all of a sudden that adrenaline starts rolling in, and Loretta's son, Anders, was there too, and he jumped in a kayak and started taking off, so I followed him, and he was the one that actually saw where this guy had fallen out of his kayak. And because the waters were so fast that he was coming down, and his friend was walking down the shore calling for help and trying to keep an eye on him as they were both floating down.
Trying to pace him, basically.
Exactly, because they had both been in a double kayak paddling together. And so Anders and I, we paddled across, and using kind of the silhouette of the street lamps and stuff like that, he saw him and called me over, and I told the gentleman to hold on to the kayak because they've got the carrying hooks there, and I paddled him just over to shore, and we grabbed his kayak. And by that time, Loretta had called the Coast Guard, who came ripping down the Willamette.
They just happened to be there?
No, it took them 10, 15 minutes.
Okay.
But first guy comes down in a jet ski and just ripping down as kind of the patrol, and the next boat just comes down in this 40-foot schooner that is just tearing down the river. And we waved them down, and they came over with their big lifeboats and stuff. And thinking back to it, it's kind of a surreal situation. The guy still gave me crap for being late, even though I told him I was out there saving a guy's life. So,
oh, yeah, sure you did.
Yeah.
Sure you did.
And yeah, sure. That's a new one. That's a good one. And I actually had the chance to meet both of them and their kids at a game later on because they got invited to come to one of the games. And I think seeing their children and understanding what it could have meant had things not gone that way, it kind of hit a deeper chord because of what I had actually done. And usually I take things pretty casually. I'm like, oh yeah, I went out, pulled this guy out who was probably going to drown. It's no thing. And I think that kind of sank it home that the importance of what I had done.
The consequences, yeah. If it wouldn't have worked, yeah.
But that was definitely one memory that I'm never going to forget. And I've never talked to the guy. I didn't know I got their first names, and I never talked to them since. But I'm glad that they are still. I hope they're still kayaking a lot. But it was a crazy day.
I want to say you scored in the next game.
Overtime against Moose Jaw.
Yeah.
Which was my best goal ever. The only time I've ever been on Plays of the Week.
I remember that. Just thinking at the time, I'm just like, what can't this kid do? Making an impact over here, making an impact over there. I'm like, that's a week right there.
It was a good start to the year. Definitely a good start to the year. I remember watching the news clip because there was a couple interviews at the houseboat where I was standing there pointing out where things had gone down, and they were all showing the highlight too. And I was like, oh, some nice 15 minutes of fame that I got today. So it was a good week, and then it turned into a good year. We went to the finals, but
that was the 2012.
That was 2011. That was the beginning of 2013.
Oh, okay. So you won. You didn't just go.
No, it was January 2012.
Okay.
Because that was the first year we had Rats and Barch on the team, or Barchy was on the team as well. I think it's all a blur.
What was he like? He didn't have a good handle on English, really, did he?
Barch is one of my favorite players, just because he always brought such a positive attitude to everything. Like, I don't think I ever saw him frown. And you can see it now with Canuck stuff like that. He's a happy-go-lucky guy. Takes his game very seriously. Super skilled, but he's probably one of the most friendly guys that I ever met, on or off the ice.
I know they said at that time that him and Ratty were pretty much inseparable on the ice, off the ice.
I mean, when you get two players that are that talented, you want to make sure that they develop a chemistry together so that they become greater than the sum of their parts. And I think that's something that we really, really, really cashed in on, where they didn't matter who you put them with, they could operate on their own with two players better than another team could operate with 5 players. So it turned out really well, and obviously you see the result of that.
Well, we're up against it with the time that you gave me, or we agreed upon. You got any other? One more crazy story? Something wild that happened with. I mean, you played with a lot of pretty colorful guys here in Portland. A lot of colorful guys.
Should have seen this coming. Should have prepared.
Well, I didn't give you anything I didn't give you much of a pitch. Maybe a little too wide open.
There was a time when we had a bus trip to Spokane, and we broke down about an hour and a half out of Spokane in January, where there were snowbanks like 5 feet high on both sides of the highways, and we all jumped out at midnight and had about an hour-long snowball fight. That was pretty crazy. I need to come back to this. Next time I'll have a good one.
Maybe that gives us a round two where it's just, we went on
Just
the road.
started.
This guy climbed over the glass or whatever. Or, maybe we'll get back to that. But I suppose with that, probably wrap it up. I appreciate your time, Taylor. I think people have fun listening to this. Again, it's just to get a guy that was a part of this build, as far as pulling this franchise off the scrap heap and culminating with a championship. I mean, it's that you were a big part of, and it's. I know there was 10,946 of my closest friends that were sitting right next to me. They were pretty happy with it. So anyway, man, it was a pleasure having you on, and look into his school there, guys.
Thanks for having me on. It was great.